A new Palestinian government is sworn in, but Hamas is excluded. Even some Fatah members are against it. What does this mean for Palestinian unity? And can Mahmoud Abbas stay in control of his own party? This is Inside Story. Hello there, welcome to the programme. I'm Shuli Ghosh. Well, Fatah leader Mahmoud Abbas has sworn in a new Palestinian government. Already, his motives are being questioned by both critics and party members. Fatah dominates the new government with 8 out of the 20 seats in cabinet. The rest are taken up by independents and other factions, except for Hamas. They have been excluded. The move has divided Fatah, with 2 party-affiliated members refusing to take seats in cabinet. And Fatah's rivals, Hamas, which controlled the Gaza Strip, say it amounts to deliberate sabotage of the unity talks going on in Cairo.
He is deliberately damaging the inter-Palestinian dialogue. This move has put in danger the upcoming talk rounds in Cairo.
Well, the new Palestinian Prime Minister was quick to defend the government. This is what he had to say.
The main objective should be ending the internal division. There's also an urgent need to empower the Palestinian Authority to continue providing the services to the citizens in the West Bank and also in Gaza. This is what the previous government did under extremely difficult and complicated conditions. And in the light of its capacities, this is the duty of the Palestinian Authority.
So what does this mean for Palestinian unity? Joining us today are our guests in Ramallah, GHASSAN al-KHATIB. He's a former Palestinian minister and a political analyst. In Gaza, Atef Adwan, a senior Hamas official. And in Cairo, Ezzeddine Shukri, Professor of International Relations at the American University in Cairo. Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Atef, let me start with you. Let's start with that Hamas reaction. This is a transitional government. Why should this affect the ongoing unity talks?
First of all, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We believe in Hamas that this government actually is something as a barricade in front of the dialogue that's taking place in Cairo. Mahmoud Abbas can actually prolong the life of the previous government and make it easier for all Palestinians and keep the unity for Fatah itself and for all Palestinians.
Well, just explain to me why, because officials in the West Bank say that once the unity talks have succeeded and there is reconciliation, that this government will quit.
Will what?
This government will end when unity is achieved. So why does this new cabinet pose a threat to unity?
So the question now, why, if he wants actually to put an end to the present government, why he is forming this government? As I've told you before, he can actually prolong the life of this government for a month or two until you know, the dialogue is reaching to its end. I think if he would have done so, this would make the situation and the atmosphere positive, and all parts will be agreed and maybe having an amicable relations between them. Even you know, Fatah itself is rejecting FAYYAD's present government. So what is the main object actually behind forming a new government? As far as the FAYYAD himself, you know, he didn't actually change the prime minister. The prime minister himself will be the present you know, prime minister. So there are no actually something different from making the previous government and the present government.
Okay, let's put that question to GHASSAN. A lot of critics saying that this is a real stumbling block towards achieving reconciliation between Fatah and Hamas. And Atef poses the question, why has Mahmoud Abbas done this now?
Yeah, many people are saying that this is probably will block the national dialogue, but nobody at all, including our speaker now, has said why or has put any logical argument into the linkage between the two things. I think that the dialogue is completely independent from any effect from such
but clearly Hamas are not seeing it as independent. Hamas are saying that it is a stumbling block, therefore it will become a stumbling block.
Yeah, but they have to say why. I mean, they have to say how expanding the current government of FAYYAD can affect the national dialogue. I want to tell you that, in my view, there is only practical reason and necessary reason for this expansion. The previous cabinet of FAYYAD included only 11 members, while there are 24 portfolios. So every minister was taking care of 2 and sometimes 3 ministries. That is not something that can last for long, and that's not in the interest of the public in terms of the quality of services. Hamas did that in Gaza. They kept expanding the number of ministers, but gradually in low profile, until they have now more or less the normal number of ministers compared to ministries. So what happened is that the cabinet here was expanded in order to fill the vacancies for practical reasons. And everybody has been saying when the dialogue will reach an agreement, then this government will move aside. And this is what happened with the first national dialogue session, when Salam Fayyad immediately presented his resignation in order to pave the way for the national unity government. But apparently everybody is concluding, including the negotiators in Cairo themselves, that this is taking time. So we cannot freeze the situations and ask people to hold on in terms of services, in terms to practical needs, until the dialogue will reach its destination. There's no linkage between the two things.
Okay, Assadine, do you see a linkage between the two things?
Well, there is definitely a linkage, but I have to say there is no way the formation of the new government in itself be conceived as a stumbling block. There are practical needs. Somebody has to run the Palestinian Authority. It is true that the previous government was seen as interim, and with 11 ministers, it was very difficult for them to run their daily businesses. Also, there are renewed diplomatic activities, and Abu Mazen has to show to the world that he at least has a government in place that is running the PA, even if it's only in the West Bank. Having said this, it is also obvious that this means that the national reconciliation talks are going to take time, and that nobody is expecting it to come to a conclusion soon enough to form a national unity government instead, and therefore the need for this government to be formed.
I mean, to be fair, there are many stumbling blocks, even if you don't count the new government. I mean, the main sticking points at the moment seem to be PLO reform, security, government agenda.
Block.
I mean, do you see those obstacles being overcome?
And the dialogue is very difficult, but the formation of this new government is a consequence of the fact that the dialogue is taking longer, that the issues are more difficult to resolve, and that the expectations are getting lower. But the formation of the government in itself is a signal, but it's not the stumbling block, because the minute you have an agreement, you can ask the new person who would be agreed on, the new person can form that new government. It's not the new government in itself, it's just a symptom of an ongoing conflict that seems harder to resolve.
Well, let's just remind our viewers of the political rivalry between Fatah and Hamas, which has existed for more than 20 years, a rivalry that eventually exploded into full-scale civil war in Gaza. In 2006, Hamas won elections and later formed a government headed by Ismail Haniyeh. International powers immediately imposed a crippling boycott. In March 2007, Fatah and Hamas formed a unity government, but the international boycott continued because Hamas refused to renounce violence or recognise Israel. 3 months on, Hamas seized control of the Gaza Strip and forces loyal to Mahmoud Abbas were routed. Abbas sacked the unity government and appointed an emergency government in the West Bank. Sanctions on Gaza continued. Ataf, if I come to you, I mean, how much do you think the current situation is because the international community turned its back on democracy, Palestinian democracy?
I don't think that this, government or the current government will serve the aim that we have a big and a good democracy. I think the present government actually is against the law, the first and second governments of Mr. Salam Fayyad, both of them actually didn't have the trust of Palestinian parliament, and even this one didn't have also the trust of the Palestinian government.
Why don't they have the trust? Is it because critics of Mahmoud Abbas are saying that he's too closely aligning himself with the US, with Israel, nations that are perceived to be Palestinian enemies?
Look, first of all, in the first time, I mean, the first Fayyad government, he came to the parliament and he changed his mind at the last moment. He believed that if he will go and have the trust of the parliament should have some conditions. He should impose some policies on Fayyad's government. That government will not be able to go or to coexist with these conditions since there are some pressure from America and Israel. So this pressure, which is expected and currently applied, he will not be able actually to go with it. So democracy actually is going with the wishes of the Palestinians, not the wishes of the Israelis and Americans. And we believe that what took place actually yesterday is an endeavor from Mahmoud Abbas to have some satisfaction from America and Israel before his visit to America in the next few days.
Ghassan, can I ask you, what do you think about that? Is this more about Mahmoud Abbas wanting to bolster his credibility, his authority before he meets President Obama than about any other reason?
No, I don't think that this is the issue, because it's not Abbas who initiated the need for expanding the government of Salam Fayyad. It's Salam Fayyad and the cabinet members themselves whom were pushing for a change.
But Mahmoud Abbas has to show Obama and the international community that Fatah is working.
That's right, but this is a byproduct. And when the people here started to work on a new government, and when Salam Fayyad resigned, there was no scheduled meeting between Mahmoud Abbas and Obama. The reason for this reshuffle is local, and it has to do with practical purposes. This cabinet needed to be expanded for practical reasons, and needed to include also representatives of the different factions as much as possible in order to have a solid base and bigger chances of stability. Now, it coincided that this happened immediately before the visit of Abbas to Obama, which is a good coincidence that is being utilized in a positive way, in a constructive way by the Palestinian leadership. But I don't think that this is a matter of cause and effect.
OK, well, it'd be interesting to see what Palestinians in the West Bank think. We went out on the streets of Ramallah to get reaction, and some Palestinians we spoke to had very low expectations of the new government.
Every time a new government is formed, there are divisions and problems around it. But I think it's a healthy sign. Like any previous government, I don't expect any major achievements out of it.
We got used to hearing about a new government, formed every now and then. The dialogue between factions is not going anywhere. This is just another caretaker government. We just hope it works for the good of the people.
Let me reintroduce our guests to you. In Ramallah, we have Ghassan al-Khatib, a former Palestinian minister. Atef Adwan is from Hamas in Gaza, and Ezzeddine Shukri is from the American University, speaking to us from Cairo. Ezzeddine, let me come to you. Let's talk about the rifts within the Fatah party. How significant is it that two Fatah party members refused to join the government because they say Fayyad hadn't discussed it with them?
Well, Fatah has been unhappy since the formation of the first Fayyad government, the emergency government, because many people in Fatah felt that it was not the right time to form an independent government, and this is the time of crisis where you need the political factions to be inside the government. There were also those who felt that they were denied what they consider their entitlement to be part of this government. And part of the reason why the first Fayyad government resigned was to allow for Fatah members to join. Now, it is obvious that there is some political conflict going on between factions in Fatah, Salam Fayyad on the other side, and even Abu Mazen. And I think this is the result of this political struggle. But these things happen in every political system, and there are always factions in any political party, and it is within the norms. I don't think this is the primary concern about the new government. I think
really, I mean, doesn't publicly boycotting the new government, doesn't that take the internal rivalry to a new level?
It's a Palestinian flavor to a small rivalry, I would say. Azam al-Ahmad also said very strong things and then retracted them later. So in the tradition of Palestinian politics, I think this is within the norms. And it's really not the major rift in the Palestinian political system today. The major rift remains Hamas on one side, and I wouldn't even say Fatah, but Ramallah, Fatah, PA, Salam Fayyad on the other side. And this is, I think, where attention should be.
What do you think, Ghassan? Is Abbas, I mean, what does this mean for Abbas's authority?
Look, I think that there is quite a comfortable majority within Fatah that supports this government and the members of Fatah that are including in this government, who compose actually half of the seats of it. In spite of some of the strong reactions that we heard here and there, which is part of the nature of Fatah, because Fatah is not a typical disciplined party. So there hasn't been in our recent history any major decision that was taken by Fatah without strong opposition from certain parts of it. So this is typical and this is normal. But looking into the reality behind the screens, I think that there is quite comfortable majority within Fatah that is satisfied with the current arrangements as far as the government is concerned, and the kind of representatives within the government from Fatah are quite genuine and significant Fatah personalities. And the president of Fatah, Mahmoud Abbas himself, is blessing this government and is the one who has been selecting the representatives of Fatah together with the others. Well, so I suggest that we do not exaggerate the negative reactions because there are a majority of people who are satisfied, but they're not as active and vocal as the others.
And Ghassan, what do you think about Salam Fayyad? Is he the right choice as Prime Minister?
I think he is the right choice for three reasons. First, he proven to be successful in the last 2 years as a prime minister, and he made several achievements in terms of running the government, particularly on the security and on the economics. Second, given the current split between Fatah and Hamas, it is very difficult and probably it's too much to have a Fatah prime minister at this point of time. Third, because of the internal difficulties within Fatah, specifically due to the competition on the eve of their anticipated Congress, it would have been very difficult for them to agree on a prime minister. So for all these three reasons, I think that Fayyad is a good choice.
OK, well, let's take a closer look at Salam Fayyad, the man chosen to lead the new Fatah-dominated government. The first thing to say about him, he's not from Fatah. He's an independent and a former economist with the World Bank. Once dubbed everyone's favourite Palestinian by Israel's Haaretz newspaper, he was appointed finance minister in 2002 under the Fatah-controlled administration. He won international praise for his economic reforms. He resigned from cabinet in 2005 to found the Third Way Party. After Hamas took over the Gaza Strip, he was appointed caretaker of the government in the West Bank by Mahmoud Abbas. Atef, Hamas don't like Fayyad very much at all. Why not? Because he's not Fatah after all.
I just want to assure the 3 points that have been mentioned by Mr. Ghassan. Actually, he failed in the main 3 points. He didn't achieve anything, good, especially in the field of economics. I just want to remind that in the last 3 months, he borrowed, the salaries of Palestinian employees from the banks. and there are nothing actually achieved to be, shown as something tangible in the economic field. Also in the field of security, he didn't done a good achievement. He actually most of the time served the Israeli security, not the Palestinian security. And I believe, as far as President Abbas himself declared so many times that he wants a government that acceptable to all parties, and the Prime Minister acceptable also to the Palestinians. SALAM FAYYAD up to this moment have been rejected by all parties, by nearly 90% of the Palestinian parliament. When you are talking about the members of HAMAS and the members of Fatah, all of them are rejecting SALAM FAYYAD. So I really feel amazing when I'm listening to Mr. GHASSAN KHATIB when he's saying that he is the right choice. I don't think that he's expressing
what do you say to that, Hassan? Atef says he's completely the wrong choice.
Well, it's natural to have differences in views, but I'm here in Ramallah, and I'm looking closely to the situations, and I think that the previous government were successful in terms of bringing law and order to the situations in the populated areas in the Palestinian territories, and this is something that is undisputed here in the West Bank. Second, I think in terms of the economy, in spite of the difficulties, he might have been borrowing or not, I don't know, but this is not necessarily a wrong indication. He has been able to sustain the budget and the salaries. There has been an improvement in the economic indicators here, whether it is the per capita income or the unemployment, etc.
This new cabinet is not going to make any difference to the lives of people in Gaza, is it?
That's right, except that the previous government and this government has been spending a little bit more than half of its budget on Gaza. Through salaries. I mean, more than half of the employees that have been receiving salaries from the Palestinian Authority are in Gaza, in addition to the amount of support that this government, and I think this coming government as well, has been putting in terms of rebuilding. The problem is that the Israelis are not allowing certain materials to be brought into Gaza.
Okay, let me bring in Ezzedine very quickly, because we are running out of time. Ezzedine, last quick word to you. What do you think is going to happen at the next round of Cairo talks then?
It's very difficult. It is possible that the two sides would reach an agreement, but unlikely, I'm afraid. Neither side has enough incentive to reach a compromise, to make the necessary concessions to the other side. Each side feels that time is probably in his favor, or at least that he's better off without a reconciliation package, a reconciliation agreement, because a reconciliation means each side will have to share power, to lose some power, and it will also compromise their external standing and expose them with their allies and friends. So for the time being, I think, unfortunately, as terrible as this might sound, I think we should prepare for probably a prolonged Palestinian rift along the Gaza-West Bank lines.
Okay, a pessimistic outlook there, but gentlemen, thank you all very much indeed for joining us. Hassan Al-Khatib, Atef Adwan and Ezzedine Shukri. And thank you for joining us here on this edition of Inside Story. We welcome your comments, of course. Please email them to us at insidestory@aljazeera.net. But for the moment, from me, Shuli Ghosh, bye-bye for now.